It literally looks like grass.
It really does.
I mean, I think seagrass is exciting all by itself. People are starting to pay attention to how important it is and the fact that it's declining. And so councils are now directing funds more towards seagrass, understanding that by doing so you're helping other things, not just seagrass. You're helping all the organisms that live, breed, have babies, use them as nursery grounds within that habitat.
For a harbour to be restored, it needs to have fish, birds, microinvertebrates, you know. There's a universe in here. A harbour's not just water, there's all these other things that need to go into it, and if this is what sustains them, this is what we need.
We want to see the health of the harbour improve. We want Te Awarua-o-Porirua to be essentially kind of what it used to be, really, bringing that health up and that mauri up of the whole environment here.
It's basically a concrete swimming pool. The amount of reclamation that's been done has just been absolutely devastating to the life, the food. I'd even say to the wairua of our people. It impacted a whole generation, and that sort of bled into our generation. And so it's really important for me to kind of be a part of making it better, fixing it. Oh, it's only because I think of my nan. So my nan's like 94, 95, and as a kid she called this the beach. They ran up and down with horses, and her reality and my reality they're completely different lives. You know, she swam, whereas we kind of experienced the harbour from the top, through wakaama and through monitoring and through, you know, like observing. It's not the same relationship. I mean, obviously aesthetically they're beautiful places. They're a place that kind of restore your mauri, make you feel good, make you feel nice. If you're feeling crap, you go to the moana and it does something, and you're better. But then also there's this other function of kai, and the coastal areas and these estuary areas. We know that, you know, fish come in because it's safe, so it's a great place to be to get a kai. That's where life is sustained. That's where we are able to carry on the practices that we were taught by my parents and their parents and so on. So there's this whakapapa of memory that's really important to kind of replicate it. You know, mahi and kai is one thing, but it's the doing together. Everyone has a role. So the uncles might do the fishing, the aunties might do the salting and the preparing, and then the tamariki do the distributing. You know, it's this big system that brings people together. And those are the things that I want my tamariki to be able to do.
Seagrass, Rimurehia, looks like grass. It just looks like normal grass, blades of green, flat grass, and it grows in what you would kind of imagine a paddock. Seagrass is found generally in intertidal or subtidal areas, so you know, where the tide's coming in and out, or really shallow kind of areas of water. And a lot of the times it's in estuaries and in some coastal rocky reefs and things. And there's only one species that we have in this country. So it's really important because what it does is it creates habitat. It's called a biogenic habitat, which is essentially is a species in itself and is important in its own right, but it's also creating a habitat for other species, which makes it extra important. A lot of those smaller animals might be things that we don't think about a lot, like little snails and gastropods and crabs and those kind of things. But all of those things are really important in the great scheme of things, in the food web and the trophic levels, and everything kind of balances out and contributes to different ecosystem processes. It acts as a bellwether for broader estuarine health. It's a carbon sink, and it traps sediment, so it helps with water clarity.
Because it was just everywhere.
Just much more abundant than it is how it is now?
Yeah, much more. Because they called this the beach.
Yeah.
And they raced horses up and down.
And then you'd have it all across here.
Yeah.
All across here, and then walk through to swim.
Yeah.
Man.
Oh, it must have been nice, eh?
It would have been lovely. And then the water in the harbour would have been so much more clearer.
Yeah.
Because the seagrass would have just
filtered
filtered it all.
I couldn't find anything in the oral histories because it wasn't called seagrass.
Yeah.
So I'd never heard of eelgrass.
Yeah.
And I guess they're like, well, that's weird, like they all
Because it kind
swim
of
through
looks,
and I
yeah.
got it. It definitely looks like it, and
It does, and it makes that movement when it's like in underwater,
it's flowing.
like a tuna. I think the flowers are one of the coolest things, because actually in Aotearoa we didn't realise that seagrass was flowering as much or even at all up until relatively recently. Like there was kind of a thought that perhaps it just reproduced asexually, because it does reproduce asexually, but we didn't realise it also was reproducing sexually, and that's because the flowers are just so weird. They're like little pea pods sort of, but at the base, and they're really small and they're hard to find, and then they have these little things that stick out that look like creepy little fingers, and they're really cool but really, really weird and hard to hard to see and hard to find. Today we're going to go out looking for seagrass flowers. We'll be in like a little line of us, like this, and the line is going to go that way until we reach the end, which is, there is like an outfall pipe there, and it's kind of in line with that. And then we will, so that kind of covers it like this, and then we basically turn and do a beautiful U shape like this until we get further out. And if we don't find any, then we record that too, and we will come back again every month for the whole summer season.
Oh, what does? Is that? That could be one.
I think it might not be.
Is it just like roots?
I think it might just be the rose.
Like when it's like, when they're just like spreading.
No, I think we're going to pass on it.
Yeah.
And it looks like a flower, and that's how they creep, and that's how they make their next. That's them reproducing asexually, essentially, rather than sexually, so it's not a flower. This here is looking like it's going to be our first little flower. It's only tiny and it's only just starting, but it's fat and it looks like there's a seed in there. So you can get these little things protruding, which are the little stigmas. A little hapu seagrass. Well, it wasn't me that found it. It was Katie. And I bet you Katie's feeling stoked. How's it feel, Katie?
Yeah, pretty good. I've been looking for them since September, so it's nice to be able to set up some plots and get some proper monitoring on the go. When I was sort of like touching the seagrass and looking for the flowering ones, I noticed that it was quite yellow. It's something called inflorescence, so you can see that it's like a little bit yellower than its like surroundings. And then it's hard to see, but also when you're touching them, they're like noticeably kind of like plump and a little bit fatter. And then I went and kind of opened it up a little bit. And basically when they're flowering, they have these little bits that stick out, and like you can barely even see it being this close. And then when you feel it and you look as well, you can almost see like the seeds sort of inside of it. It's the first one we found, which is cool, and hopefully there'll be more.
We don't have bees in the ocean, so bees would often pollinate different sorts of flowers in the terrestrial area, but for the ocean you've got the currents. You've got the currents, and they're going to move things around, and so the currents will move around different types of seeds. So what we're going to do now is, this means this will be the start of our setup. So we will mark it, and then we're going to mark a couple of transit lines, and then we will put stakes in, and we will do some monitoring. And the way that we monitor each transect is we have a little quadrat, and it's a 50 centimetre by 50 centimetre quadrat, and we put it next to the peg on the seagrass, and in that quadrant we're just kind of searching through for flowers within just that little quadrat and recording how many we find, what stage they're at. And we do that at the high, low and mid transects. And we take photos of them and we record all the data in an app and also manually, and then that will allow us to analyse it later on. And then next time we'll come back to the same exact transect lines and do the same exact things, and hopefully there'll be more flowers. Yeah, and this is the first time that we've ever monitored this in this region, and I think, yeah, there's not many places that have, so Nelson's been doing it, so we're using methodology that Cawthron's developed to look for them. We know that there was a lot more, that there used to be a lot more seagrass within this harbour, and therefore if we equate that with estuarine health, that the harbour used to be, and these estuaries used to be a lot healthier. We hope to be able to use these as like our pilot sites that we've done it once with, and if we want to be able to repeat it, we can, but also talking with Ngāti Toa about being able to perhaps develop some sort of more educational thing for the rangatahi where they might be able to be the kaitiaki of different sites that we haven't done yet, and perhaps next season, using the learnings that we've learnt from this season, be able to go out and monitor by themselves and perhaps develop the program that way as well. Can you see this grass here? Super thin. And actually that's come loose, and I wonder if that's got anything, so I can show you. Yeah, there we go. Right there, that's a seed pod. So it's tiny, right?
That's so cool though.
Yeah. So that one's just come loose. So that hopefully will still like float around and go somewhere and do some good stuff.
Oh, they're really lovely. I can see why fish and stuff want to be in there.
Within Te Awarua-o-Porirua, there's a lot of different mahi going on in the seagrass space. We have been running this drone mapping program, and we have Christo, who's our drone pilot, who's awesome, and he developed a methodology to be able to map the seagrass at low tide, which is when we need it to be mapped because then it's out and we can see it, using a drone and using really high quality drone imagery, which means that when he takes it back into the computer lab, he can stitch it together in these orthomosaic maps where you can look at it in great detail.
In our case, for the vegetation monitoring, is that you can cover a larger area in a lesser time than if you are just walking on foot and recording everything with a handheld GPS device. Precision is higher, and also the personnel is not exposed to the hazards out in the field. So from this single point, I can map most of this bay here and not to wade around. So, again, the limitations are the weather conditions, what can be seen and perceived with a certain sensor at a certain situation and so on. So it's always the right tool for the right job. This is Mavic 3 Enterprise. So apart from the 20 megapixels RGB camera, has 4 multispectral cameras which record green, red edge and near infrared bands, and they are designed to do the vegetation monitoring. So this one is primarily used in agriculture, interestingly, but it's perfectly applicable for any type of vegetation health monitoring. So red edge band is the still visible light but very close to the infrared band, and then it records the near infrared, so that's infrared but just close to the visible light. And why are we using those ones? Because it was understood that the chlorophyll is highly emittent in the near infrared band. So it just has a huge reflection on it. So ratios between near infrared band and the other bands, predominantly red ones, would give you the indication of the health of the plants, of the vegetation. The main camera you can switch to NDVI index, and then everything changes. NDVI's normalized difference vegetation index. So I would look for the vegetation. The yellow colors are just sparse or not so healthy vegetation. If we are going into the red and the purple colors, that is more and more healthy and vigorous vegetation. So you can see here in the bottom left corner the seagrass beds where there is some sparse and the low-lying vegetation, and then you can see these red areas, which is the coastal vegetation, trees and the grasses, which are very, very vibrant. For the seagrass, it was very interesting the first time when I flew over the area, which looked totally brown and just dead and so on. And then when I compared the visible light image with the NDVI index, and it just exploded. Like you see that there is a lot of things going on. It's really healthy and vigorous vegetation, which you would never figure out. So that was quite an eye-opening moment.
Yeah, it's really cool technology. Well, that data that we have, we're feeding into a project that is being run by NIWA to develop an AI classification tool that is able to mark a signature of a particular plant and classify that within this AI tool, and therefore hopefully using that multispectral imagery would be able to look at a picture and go, oh, this is like the difference between maybe like ulva, which is this sea lettuce, which is an algae, and seagrass, you know, and if they're side by side and you're looking at a photo of them from the air, it's actually quite difficult sometimes to tell the difference. But if we can pick up the different light signatures from them, the idea is that it would come out with like, oh, the density of seagrass here is this, and here are the border lines of this, and here is also the density of the macroalgae, and here's the type of macroalgae. And that's the idea, is to basically be able to use it to do it easily and not have to have people on the ground traipsing around the estuaries, ground truthing stuff. So if we can just fly a drone out, put it through a tool and have maps, then we can track how our seagrass beds are going in terms of density and coverage. And being able to do that will allow us to be able to respond to different pressures or things that are happening to those environments way quicker, and to understand what is happening in those environments a lot quicker as well. Doing that mahi and understanding what we have is the first step in how we can make it better. So finding the flowers, and the drone footage can help with that as well, because it would tell us how dense the areas are. So then we can go, okay, we'll check there for flowers, and we find the flowers, and then we go, okay, we've got flowers here, might have flowers there, which then can inform us the best areas to maybe start restoration efforts. And restoration efforts are part of the Harbour Accord.
So the Harbour Accord, it's pretty cool. Back in when I first started working in this space, everyone was kind of doing their own thing. And the Harbour Accord is a tool, or it's a way that we can work together.
And so basically it's a bunch of different organisations, stakeholders essentially, with an interest in this area, coming together with iwi to make an agreement, to make a pact really, to say like, hey, this is important to us, agreeing to something but in writing, making it formalised and saying we're all in this, we all want to get this healthier, help the modi of the area, and improve the environment back to a place where it used to be.
And it's sharing the knowledge and sharing the resource. It's helping us to kind of do that, you know, that mahitahi, that kotahitanga, the putting the priorities and setting out what those actions are in a collective way. So we've kind of split the actions into 4 areas, creating these groups, and we're trying to make sure that like whatever we do create or want to implement, it's doable for the councils. It's not just the aesthetic that's important, because a lot in the past it was always about recreation or the aesthetic view or people's you know, the value of their homes. It was never about the health and the restoration of the species. And I've been working in the environment for probably about 10-ish years, and this is the first time I've actually felt like we're going to get some stuff done.
Seagrass comes into that because that's one of the measurable targets. We need to focus on a few things. We can't focus on everything. Focus on a few things, and seagrass is one of those things that we really do want to focus on. If we improve these habitats, the seagrass habitats, to improve the wider estuarine health, and that's the aim of the game.
Through this harbour accord, I feel listened to, I feel heard. It's amazing that we're finally at the stage where the life of the harbour is also important. I'm just grateful we're doing stuff because I can see real hope if we can figure out how to transplant or whatever it is, propagate it, put it somewhere else. Like, we've cracked it if we can figure that out.
So overall, I am really optimistic about the health of the harbour and what we can do for it, and the fact that we're all coming together, and especially with the Harbour Accord and how that has brought everyone together. It does bring with it a lot of optimism, and getting everyone on board with seagrass, which is the coolest thing ever, is definitely brings a lot of optimism to kind of the mahi that we're doing. So I think onwards and upwards.